Good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to Darlington Raceway as round 3 on the RODDCAR Truck Tour season. It gets underway this evening on LSRTV and iRacing Live. It is part 1 of our Friday night RODDCAR Super Speedway doubleheader. I want to welcome you into the LSRTV broadcast booth from the track Too Tough to Tame. Myself, Evan Pasoko, Andy Kessler, Josh Ball with you, along with LSRTV producer Cisco Scaramuza. Andy, this is a track where we talk about the trucks being an exciting truck, maybe more so in most people's minds than the B cars, than the Cup cars, because you can get a little bit more physical with them. They're just a little bit more fun to drive to, I think, for some drivers. However, tonight, not going to be very fun for a lot of guys, because Darlington, it's the Lady in Black. They call it the track Too Tough to Tame. It is a difficult track. It's one of the tracks, and we saw this and we talked about it in depth back in the season one race here, a track where you're racing the track more than you're racing the people around you. And then when you find yourself in a battle with somebody else, it makes things that much more interesting. It's hard to predict what we're going to see here tonight at the Darlington Raceway. We got 91 laps on the board. It's round 3 of the championship, so season 2 getting off and underway. And so far, we've been impressed from what we've seen with the fixed setup. But I think tonight at Darlington, a track where even with the fixed set, even with the fact that everybody's running the exact same equipment, I think we're going to see some of the bigger names prevail, because this is a track that the veterans tend to exceed at, because no matter how good you are at certain tracks, track time is crucial at a place like Darlington.
Yeah, without track time here, you're definitely lost, Evan, and it's one of those tracks that's just, typically these guys middle to bottom of the racetrack they drive, but you can't do that to be fast here. You have to run up by the wall. The concentration level is huge here. It's hard to pass. There's a lot of things that go into this racetrack, and it makes it real tough for any drivers, any car. So it's really something that takes a lot of practice, a lot of seat time to really get the hang of it, especially exit a turn 2. That's probably one of the most difficult probably turns in all of the sim. It's just that wall sneaks out on you coming out of turn number 2, because it's real wide. It narrows right up to a small straightaway down the backstretch. So it's very tough track, and like you said, it takes a lot of practice to get good at it. And it's one of them places you really got to be patient, and you got to race the racetrack, not the other cars around you.
And we take a look trackside. The drivers right now working through the closing minutes of the practice session. They're going to have to qualify in just 2 minutes. It is going to be a 5-minute and as always, an open qualifying session tonight. You see the 48 low Chevy on track. Well, Josh Ball going to be making an attempt to race tonight. Southern 200. Josh also on the radio with us, Josh. So we can sit here and kick sticks and talk about what the drivers are going to be looking at tonight. What are you going to be looking at tonight as a key to try to survive this race? Because as we said, this plays no walk in the park.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, it's battling the track itself, because it's pretty loose out here actually. Coming off of turn 2, it's really loose, and then it's super tight in turn 4. I think there might be like a little bit of a crosswind that's pushing from turn 2 to turn 4 that's making it that way, but you see a lot of tight racing, probably a lot of single file, as it's really hard to pass here. And but the track is, like you said, too tough to tame, and there's going to be some people getting into the wall for sure tonight.
And we want to talk about exciting races. The RODDCAR Truck Tour back in action tonight. Had last week off for the IROC season opener. Don't want to look too far down the schedule already. It is an 18-race championship. However, next week we're going to go to Rocky Dam. You got Charlotte, Bristol, Martinsville coming up. So this is not the only difficult track we're going to see on the season, but it definitely is a unique intermediate 1.5-mile track in comparison to what everything else we see. It's a 1.36 technically down to the numbers, but it's basically the same kind of a track style that you would use at an intermediate track. In turns 3 and 4, very different than 1 and 2. It's something that from the cameras you might not see tonight. We'll go on board with the 48 right now. Take a look as the practice session winds to a close. And the biggest thing is this track is not only difficult in and of itself, but you go down the turns 1 and 2, much wider and a much more of a broad corner than you are down the backstretch into 3 and 4, which in sim racing on the oval side of things, you can kind of cheat the setups with the fixed setup because you can make it to let the car turn left. Road setups are a lot more difficult because the car's got to handle good into both directions. Tonight, kind of a similar circumstance because what makes Darlington is the fact that turns 1 and 2 are different than 3 and 4. You might like the way the truck handles better at one end of the racetrack than the other, and I'm sure the setup, just the way it's made, is going to be better on one end or the other. So it's going to be the fact that how you do on the end of the racetrack that you're not comfortable with is going to win you this race. Passing zones, well, there's not a lot of them. Turns 1 and 2 seems to be the more popular place because it's a little bit wider, and you see the white hash marks below these guys as qualifying gets underway. That's in play. Not that I would suggest it, but things can get pretty wild here at Darlington, especially if we find ourselves in one of those late race scenarios, especially with the restarting at 91 laps. A good length. We'll see some pit surface. We'll see some strategy play into this, but I think the key tonight is going to be limiting mistakes and just getting through this. Again, might not be the fastest driver, I think, that wins the race. It's going to be the guy that keeps it out of the fence more times than not, and tonight, that's a pretty tall order.
Yeah, tall order, to say the least, honestly. I guarantee at least every truck on this racetrack is going to at least scrape the wall at least once around this place. So it is a tall order to do. Just, man, 3 and 4 is probably the toughest, too. It's so narrow and it's such a tight radius of a turn. It's almost like a egg-shaped oval. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. These guys will be running way up on the high side. Like you said, those hash marks on the bottom, they're in play, but the only time you're going to see those guys go down there is if they're trying to avoid someone in the wall.
And that is something that I'm sure we'll see a little bit of tonight. Let's talk some specifics about the Darlington Raceway. The lady in black, the track too tough to tame, whatever you want to call her. Been around for 66 years. It hosts NASCAR Sprint Cup Series and as well Xfinity Series competition. 1.366 miles in length. Turns 1 and 2 banked at 25 degrees. 23 degrees of bank it down in turns 3 and 4. And a little bit on the front and a little bit on the back. So far, the season has gotten off with a bang. We've been through Daytona. We have been through Atlanta. Darlington, Rockingham races 3 and 4 on the calendar. Kind of the first little bit of taste of change that we see. This isn't longer period of time from start to finish. It is an 18 race championship, Josh. As a driver as well, coming into races like this, going from season 1, and now we're already 3 races into season 2, which really got going underway. We had such a blast in season 1. The fixed setups, I think, are going to be the single biggest thing that we look at this year to see who could take advantage of that and who may be a little bit off with that fixed setup as opposed to maybe with the setup advantage that they had back in season 1. 18 races, though. There's still no chase. It is still the same drop week procedure. Does that change anything, or do you just race like you did for 15 races? You're just doing it 3 more times?
I think the same. You race the same way. I mean, you go out there, you try to win, but honestly, in this truck series, I think it's more about being conservative. So, a lot of these guys, you saw Josh Tanner last season win the truck championship, and he didn't win his first race until like the last couple races. He was just consistently finished top 5, top 10, mostly top 5s throughout the season, and he was able to get the job done and take home the championship. So, I think it's going to be, if you can be consistent in this series, that's what it's about. I think a little bit more the iSuper Speedway, which we'll see later on tonight. You're winning, you're in the chase. That one, you might not. It's kind of more if you're more aggressive, I think, in that series. So, but definitely here in the truck series, be conservative like last season, like Josh Hanner, and that'll get you the job done this season.
Well, we're about set to get the Southern 200 underway. So with that, we're going to toss things down trackside for tonight's opening ceremonies and down with Jaden Berkey for the performance of our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight
And a big thanks to Jaden Berkey as well to the virtual Thunderbirds for the flyover. And that means that all our prerequisites now out of the way. It is time to go racing in Darlington. So let's take a look trackside. We'll rack them and stack them for you and take a look at the starting grid for the Southern 200. How about pole position? Kyle Larson, he topped the Sprint Unlimited practice session just a little bit ago, and it is the Target Chevrolet of Seth the Merchant who tops the qualifying session. He'll roll that 32 machine off from the pole with the 28.105, and Shotgun on the front row. Going to go a good starting spot for the 72. Keegan Leahy. Casey Malone going to start to the inside in number 3 before tonight. Going to go to the 7, Rodney Wofford. And rounding out your top 5 qualifiers inside to row 3. How about the 12, Corey Henry? Good starting spot.
Yeah, look at the number 34, Sean Bowney, getting his first ever RODDCAR Truck Tour start here tonight in the 6th spot. 7th goes to Kyle Manger. Christian Peterson will start 8th. 9th goes to Josh Hanner. And Rod Flagg will round out the top 10.
11th tonight going to be the 40 with Ryan Pylan. Josh Ball starting in 12th spot. 13th, Ben Niles, Shane McEachin in 14th, and James Pileski back at 15th.
16th goes to Frank Busilia. Tommy Hall will start 17th. 18th goes to Matt Quick. Jimmy Todd will start 19th. And 20th is Daniel Ferguson.
At back on row number 11, 21st starting spot to the 24 of Ryan Keys. Kelly Dahl, 22nd. Kent Connolly, 23rd. Ramon Evans in 24th. And 25th is Matt Bontempi.
26th here tonight will be Jason Altman's in the 51. Greg Hooks will start 27th. Stephanie Lessentine will start her truck in the 28th spot. 29th will go to the 8 of Dana Osborne, and Josue Ramirez will start 30th.
And in to round out tonight's grid, 31st, Ron Thompson. Ray Rittenau with the second, slated to roll from 32nd. However, he is not currently on track. Neither is Thompson. Glenn Hendrick in 33rd spot. Donnie Giratano in 34th. Not all of those drivers outside of the top 30 going to be able to make a start in tonight's event with the grid restrictions, which are based on track size, and qualified has to dictate if you're able to make it in. And at tracks like this, under 2 miles, 5-minute open queue session allows the top 30 times to make it onto the grid, so we may see that number shrink just a little bit, but right now about 32 drivers currently on the grid attempting to be allowed to take the green flag this evening. So we pace at a turn number 2, getting set for 91 laps of battle here at Darlington Raceway, and it is going to be Seth the Merchant out in front of the field. I talked about veterans rising to the front, Andy, not surprised there. I'm excited about Leahy and Malone, though, starting inside of the top 3. Keep it on the 72 and the 52 tonight.
Yeah, that's 2 names we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on, and it is no surprise, Evan, that Seth the Merchant right there on the pole, and pretty close times, though, through the top 4, so it'll be fun to watch.
Pace car going to make the sharp left-hand turn, get down and waist side, and we get set to go racing for the Southern 200 on LSRTV. Pace car down, Seth the Merchant going to come under the flag stand. Green flag in the air and racing from Darlington, South Carolina. They set sail, and the 1 and 2 for the first time already tight. Back on row number 4, Sean Boundy trying to sweep to the bottom. That did not work. Top 4 going to try to single file out, but it's a battle for the race lead down the back and the outside for Leahy, using the banking to his advantage. 72 to the front in turn 3.
Yeah, that high side's the word place you want to be, so starting second was a good spot for Keegan Leahy, and there he is right now, pulling away a little bit, half a truck length now, but Seth the Merchant and Leahy have actually pulled away from Casey Malone in that 3rd spot. So, so far, so good for the top 2. They switched spots, but they're running clean right now. Oh, we got trouble. Leahy loose off of turn number 2. That's going to give that lead right back to Seth the Merchant as they head back into turn number 3, and here comes Casey Malone on his rear bumper.
And that truck broke sideways just as those left side tires trying to swing low off the corner so that he doesn't get up into the fence. And again, most tracks, you want to be as close to the wall as you can here. You want to be low because that corner ends abruptly. Left side tires got on that white hash marks rather down on the inside. It was a spectacular save, though, and Leahy's going to be able to maintain the number 2 running spot. Seth the Merchant, who was not all that far behind, easily puts the 6-man motorsports machine back to the top spot. 32 down in front, but a 72 even more impressive. That big of a bobble still runs in second. Casey Malone is kind of settled out in third. Rodney Wofford in fourth. Fifth on back where the fun is at. Corey Henry, the number 12, has the spot. He's got a lot of attention from the 7 to Christian Peterson all over the back of that truck, down in turns 1 and 2. Good run off, though, going to give the 12th truck about a car length advantage.
Well, we got a lead change already going on. Looks like Seth the Merchant had some issues. That gave Leahy the position, and then look at Casey Malone now on his back bumpers. They still continue to battle for the lead. Top 3 now, covered under a blanket. You got Rodney Wofford in that 4th spot. He's now coming into the mix.
And that happened again, as you mentioned very quickly. I had just said that it was DeMerchant, then Leahy, and then Malone, and they were spread out. I mean, they weren't even close. And right now, your top 3 running under half of a second from each other, even the last time by, within 0.3 of a second, at about a truck length or 2 in between them. But that 72 machine, we'd always got the speed, jumped out to the early race lead. But again, breaking sideways, those are the mistakes that we've said you're going to have to limit tonight. Sometimes being a little bit slower, but being a little bit more consistent can be good for you. By far and large, I think that 72, but he's getting his marks, is the fastest driver on the racetrack right now, and you saw it that time through the wider 1 and 2. The 72 pull a car length on Seth the Merchant. This time in 3 and 4, they stay about even, but the 72 holds the race lead at turn number 4, now working lap 7, still early of 91 this evening.
And it looked like Seth the Merchant just scraped the wall off turn number 4, so he'll lose a little bit more time right there, too. Not a hard hit, just a small little scrape. Left some paint back there on the wall, but other than that, able to keep on going here. Looks like Corey Henry's falling back also. He's down to that 8th spot now as they run. So a couple guys getting around him here early on. The 99 machine, one of them a new one, not Kyle Manger, from it looks like he's running teammates with Christian Peterson and Seth the Merchant. It's got the kind of a unique target paint scheme with the black on it.
And it's a sharp-looking machine, but it's sliding backwards. A couple of guys. We mentioned Peterson. He has been in P5 for a little bit now again. Fought hard to get around Sean Boundy. He's dropped Boundy now back down to P6 where he started. But the top 8 drivers right now on track, still the top 8 that started in this race. They're shuffled up a little bit, but no big movers quite to this point. We talk about Peterson. He wants the number 4 spot. He's all over the back of the 7 of Rodney Wofford. Problem is, you can get to him, sure. You got to find a spot to go. Good run. At a turn number 2, he'll peek the nose to the bottom, and he'll back it off. Again, a good run, but you need to get the run at the right time, or it means nothing. This time, ducking to the inside, coming off the corner, and can't quite keep the nose there. That 7 Rodney Wofford not giving up.
I'll tell you what, Evan, I love watching this racetrack and watching the drivers, their entries into the corners and how they maneuver around these corners. And turn 1 is just so interesting because you really dive in low, but then you just let that car drift up to the top. And it's a pretty unique place to watch a race. And to even drive, it's pretty unique. I've driven here a few times, and trust me, I've had my fair share of licks into the wall.
And we've seen a couple of guys get their fair share already. The Darlington Stripe in the 7, making a smart move there. Peterson got a nose to the inside once again. And Ronnie Wofford said, okay, he's a little bit quicker, backed off, let him go on by. That 7 could have challenged if he wanted to a couple of more laps. But again, we said you really don't want to be side by side in the quarter battling for a spot. It's a lot better for both guys if it's quick and painless. So the 7 sticks the hand out the window net, waves him on by. At his time across the start finish on Christian Peterson, 8 to 4. One of the bigger movers so far here tonight. And behind him, Sean Boundy getting eaten up. Helped it on Kyle Manger. Started 7th. He'll take over the number 6 spot in 1 and 2. A good pass to the inside on the 34 to take over that spot. And with that being said, that means that Sean Boundy is going to have plenty more company because the 48 of Josh Ball, the 26 of Rod Flag, and the 12 of Corey Henry not all that far off. So the 34 going to pick it up a little bit, or he'll quickly be outside the top 10.
He's going to have to. We're watching Josh Ball. He just gets into the wall in 1 and 2 there. Just a little bit, a little scrape. Little paint rub right there. Gets a little loose now off of turn number 2. And the 48 truck having some issues spinning off of the backstretch down there off of turn number 2. No caution yet. Looks like he's going to ride it the right way. It looks like no damage on that truck. Doesn't look like he hit anything. So Josh Ball able to keep it going, but obviously losing a ton of spots.
And a close call that time. Dana Osborne, the 8, got sideways coming out of turn number 2, and Osborne tried to recover, went to the apron. That's where that 48 was. A little bit of a tight call trying to get through. Data Osborne going to bring that number 8 machine down pit side. Second time tonight we have seen turn 2 give us that exact same scenario, and we saw it earlier. Now big problems going out down the back straightaway. Couple of drivers getting out of shape. The 21 of Glenn Hedrick, the driver that it's all focused around, running back outside the top 15. He's slow down the back. They'll squeeze by on the outside. That time it was the Pepsi machine that plowed the outside fence. He got a little bit of help going around from Remote Evans. Other than that, Andy, so the other 2 incidents in turn 2 have come from somebody going to the bottom. They go to the bottom so they don't get into the fence. They catch the apron and break sideways. It's a very tight line they got to walk here.
Yeah, that's why I said earlier in the broadcast that turn 2 is probably the trickiest one in all of the sim, and it's just because you're so used to running up against that wall, and it's so tight. It just narrows down so much right there at the exit of turn number 2, and it's really tough because you overturn it just a little bit. You're on the apron, you end up spinning like we saw with the 21, like we saw earlier with the 72 of Keegan Leahy also did it too. So it's one of those things, and it's tough. It's really narrow where you have to drive off of turn number 2, and it makes it real tough on these drivers. And that's why I say the concentration level of these guys has to be spot on for all 91 laps tonight. So there's no break at this track at all.
And even when we come down for pit service, that's not all that common either, because pit road is at a downhill slope. Problems in turn number 4, though. Seth the Merchant from the top of the board loses a lot of speed. Casey Malone going to put the Canes machine out in front of the field after the Merchant went to the inside to get around some lap traffic. Caught that apron, and again, the apron still technically part of the racetrack. There's no yellow line, there's no out of bounds, but it very quickly gets flat below those white hash marks. DeMerchant clipped him, got sideways, much like we saw earlier with Keegan Leahy. He was able to hang on, only dropped back 1 spot. This time it was good news for Casey Malone, who started in 3rd spot. First time tonight, the 52 truck out in front.
That was a good heads-up call by him to be able to. That's one thing, to spot what's happening in front of you and be able to prepare to avoid it. And Casey Malone did a great job there. Takes the race lead, starting to lap some trucks now. Looks like goes around the Napa machine right there, drop to the inside. A smart move right there. And a couple other guys having problems too. But I'll tell you, Seth the Merchant's fast because he's caught up to Casey Malone now. It's going to be a battle for the lead here momentarily.
He gets to the bumper, and we have seen a couple of times tonight battles kind of simmer down quickly because somebody lets that person go. Could be a different story for the race lead. How much of a fight is that 52 going to put up to close it in quickly on the back of the number 22? Stephanie Lessentine, Slip Ankle Motorsports Toyota, going to fall 1 lap to the negative once she gets put that lap down. Right now she is 26th, last on the lead lap. She tanked the Lucky Dog spot away from James Pileski in 27th, who at the moment was running in the first spot 1 lap down. Now the 22 machine going to pull over, let your leaders go on by. So it is the 52, it is the 32, and they are well out in front by over 4 seconds to now 3rd place runner. How about this? The Hype Energy, number 7, Rodney Wofford takes over the 3rd spot. Kyle Manger takes over 4th as Keegan Leahy now falls to 5th. So the 72 machine falling back and lose another spot to the 71 of Christian Peterson.
Yeah, that could be just a product of overdriving it early on. We're at that point here around 15 to 20 laps where you really start to see these tires fall off. So that little bobble he had early in the race when he had the race lead that burned some rubber off those tires, plus obviously driving real hard. This place can do damage on the tires real quickly here. It's a rough surface to drive on. So all these guys probably at this point hanging on to it. I wouldn't be surprised. We'll see him go about 30, 35 laps probably on a set of tires, but we'll see what happens once the pit stops start happening. You talked about pit stops a little bit earlier, Evan. This pit road that on this racetrack is a very, very tough one to get onto. It's hard to judge the distance coming off of turn number 3 to get on the apron, to get slowed up, and then to make a real hard left turn to get inside the cones there to get on pit road. So it is a tough place all around. The racetrack, the getting on pit road, it's all tough.
And for the older fans at NASCAR, don't worry, we're not using the backstretch. Battle for the race lead is on the front stretch where those pit stops will be taking place. It is still the 52, still the 32, and they still run nose to tail at the moment. This is one of those tracks where, despite the fact that we don't really have an access road at a place like a Homestead of Miami Speedway, but there is a lot of time, as you just said, Andy, for guys to make up and or lose time during green flag pit stops, because again, you can come down in turn number 3. You see the yellow line trail off at 4. You're not ducking down that late. That truck's not going to rotate, so you're going to come down much sooner. There goes the battle for the lead. Lap 24. At Malone, we asked the question how much of a battle he would put up for it. Maybe caught the fence, and it might have played a little bit of a factor in it, but it really wasn't one. He backs off, lets Seth the Merchant go on by, and at 32, digging at a turn number 2, back to the race lead, now at lap 25. And again, just like all other RODDCAR Truck Tour events, 70% fuel cell on board these guys in their Chevrolets and their Toyotas, so not all that far away from what would be the first cycle of green flag pit stops. And I would imagine at that point, if a couple of guys who have come down pit lane already haven't done so, we may see our first quick fixes be used. Everybody has one quick repair available for tonight's race.
Yeah, pretty good battle all over this racetrack here. Right now I'm looking at the 71 and the 72 going at it pretty good right now. They're pretty close to each other. Corey Henry's kind of settled out from the beginning of this race, Evan, where he was up front, started in that 5th spot, dropped a bunch of positions, but he's made his way back up to the 7th spot, so he's able to get it done as Christian Peterson actually lets the 72 of Leahy and Corey Henry go by him right there.
In defense. And down to the apron goes Keegan Leahy. He'll hang on. He's got to come back up, though. At a turn number 2, look out to the inside is where Rod Flag is going to go. You were talking about Henry kind of falling back and then balancing to back out. I was just about to throw in there as well. The 72 is at an up and down night. And now another fall in that for the 72 machine. Leahy, again, has speed. We saw that earlier, but consistency so far paying off much more than the speed itself.
Yeah, it's exactly what it's got to be. You just got to be consistent lap times, lap after lap after lap, and you just got to be patient with your passes. It's hard to pass, but you got to be smart about it, especially lap traffic. Trouble there in 3 and 4.
A lot of smoke.
Like the 48.
Here, maybe the 48. I'm trying to find all the smoke. It's definitely filling up the racetrack down in turns 3 and 4. Here, and it is from the 48 Chevrolet of Josh Ball. Try to get a second look at that. I know he caught the fence, got a little bit sideways. There was a lot of smoke, and I feel like there may have been another driver involved in that besides just the 48, because it was smoky down there for about a half of a lap. I know the 3 machine looked a little bit slow on the outside of the racetrack. That was Donnie Giordano. Nonetheless, nothing big enough to bring out a caution flag. We're 30 laps in at Darlington, still green up at the front of the field. And for the first time tonight, Seth the Merchant is actually being able to slowly build on a lead, half a second in front of Casey Malone, who remains as the next closest driver, with 1 and 2 still being well out in front of the rest of the field. It's 3.5 seconds back to Rodney Wofford, who, by the way, now in the number 3 spot, but now 6 plus if you're looking at 4th on back with Major and Henry inside the top 5.
Yeah, Rodney Wofford was actually about 4.5 seconds back, so he's coming. He's saved his tires, it looks like, in that early run, and he's gotten his groove. We talk about getting in a groove and getting into a rhythm. This is definitely one of those places where you need to do that. You need to be able to get in a good groove, and definitely, when you let off the throttle, you just got to be consistent, and it's a very daunting task for everybody. So we see Wofford actually take off another 10th that lap. So the 7 truck is on the move here. It's a little early. He's got a lot of laps to go still, but the 7 truck looking strong.
Is indeed, and again, another driver that kind of fell back early and has picked it up. But I say early, we're only 32 laps in it on. He won it, but it is 1/3 distance. Pit road going to be busy soon. It sounds like Sean Boundy could be coming pit side from the number 8 position. Joining him on pit road going to be Greg Cooks as well. I see Ben Niles. So a couple of guys from the back of the pack in. Highest runner in pit road, Christian Peterson from inside of the top 5. Now we await Seth the Merchant to come down. And I wouldn't expect your leaders to stay out for much longer. We talked about how much the tire fall off is here. Longer you stay out, the more time you get back to those guys. But nobody from the top 3 taking it on yet.
Yeah, you're talking 2-3 seconds difference with fresh tires. So we saw that a couple times this week, actually. At Vegas, we saw that 2 nights ago on Wednesday. The tire fall off, how significant it was, and it's definitely something you gotta stick with your plan, because either strategy could work. It depends on how fast you are on the racetrack. So for guys that were middle of the top 10 right there, Sean Bounty, who pitted, he was around the 7th, 8th spot when he came into pit road. Probably not a bad call to short pit. It'll definitely gain him some time, probably put him back up into the top 5 area once green flag stops cycle out. But this is one of those places, Evan, when the green flag pit stops start, that's when you really, especially for one of the early guys, that's when you cross your fingers and hope this thing stays green so that you can get the full cycle in there. Otherwise, it ends up trapping a lot of guys a lap down. So we'll have to see how it plays out, obviously, over the course of the night. But so far, so good. This has been a good, clean race for Darlington, I'll tell you that. No caution so far.
I would be interested to find out what the likelihood of a yellow coming out during green flag pit stops is in comparison to not, but it always seems like it's a little bit higher, and it always happens right smack dab in the middle of them. Well, we have had several drivers from the top 10, from the top 15 be down pit side so far, but Seth the Merchant, Casey Belode, and Rodney Wofford yet to do so. All inside, though. Good thing to note, we talk about guys losing time. Rodney Wofford is the fastest driver on the racetrack. He has been making up time in about a couple hundredths to a tenth per lap. He's brought it down from 3.5 seconds that we said a little bit ago, now to 3.2 seconds. Seth the Merchant picked up a little bit more so at the longer end of this green flag run. But Rodney Wofford putting up a point that he's not going to back down. Now we start to kind of get into the problem where, sure, these guys had a 40-minute practice, they had a 5-minute Q session, that's great, but once you hit the track, Andy, everything's different when you're out there with 20, 25 other drivers. So this first stint is always a stint you use to feel things out. If you think you maybe missed the mark in Q, then you pick it up a little bit, and then you got to kind of weed your way through the field. It's the second stint of the race where we really get to see who's got what. And the problem for a lot of guys is by the time we get to that point, they're too far behind. So when there's races that have a possibility of going green like this, that's where you get a problem. Spinner out of turn number 2. It is Ben Nile, the 55, stomped down on the apron. No caution. Third time tonight, at least. Somebody's gone around from getting the left side tires down on that white line, and he didn't have a chance of recovering that one. That was a big lick.
Yeah, absolutely was. He'll go down, take the virtual tow down pit road. The cool thing is, we still stay green. I'm watching the 17 truck right now. He's one of those guys that's already come down to pit road, Matt Bontempi, and you could just really see the difference of the fresh tires to the old tires, and you can see him catching up on guys. He caught up to the leader, Seth the Merchant, real quick, got around him pretty easily. With those fresh tires, you can really put that truck wherever you want to, but you do have to be careful because you don't want to overdrive it, wear the tires out too quick, because then you're going to be in trouble in about 10 to 15 laps. So the 17 truck doing a good job getting around this traffic with his fresh tires. So that's another key to watch too, is these guys that are on the fresh tires coming through the traffic, coming through the guys that are still on the lead lap that haven't pit yet, and you can see it just that makes it difficult also to get around them.
And we were lucky that we didn't see a yellow there because, again, we talked about the lack of a defined apron. That normally trigger yellow. One car accident not going to cut it. Again, if there is a accident of 3 or more drivers, it would automatically cause for a caution to be thrown from race control. Other than that, it is up to the discretion of the sim. And I feel like in recent weeks more so, than years past and maybe the norm, we've been seeing a lot of incidents go unpunished and sideways at a turn number 2. Was Ramon Evans a little bit sideways, a little bit just trying to get out of the way. He is 13th. He'll duck to the inside, let Seth the Merchant go on by. So I was thinking that we would see DeMerchant Malone coming in not all that far after we saw Peterson and company come down. It looks like we're on 2 completely different pit strategies. Give them 2 more laps, and they're going to be at the halfway point. They make it there, you could make it on 1 pit stop.
Yeah, and you know what? As fast as those guys are, including Wofford, as fast as those guys are, I don't blame them for staying out there and making this only a 1-stop race. 1 stop means only 1 chance to mess up on pit road rather than a couple times. So it's definitely not a bad call for those guys at all. for the other guys that were down a little bit further, I still agree that it was probably a good idea for them to come down, get the fresh tires, get back out there, get some more speed. Because you know what, if it's probably their only chance they were going to get to have a possibility to try to win this thing or get in the top 5. Because they were already about 10 to 12 seconds behind on this run. So it was a good call for some other guys staying out, like Seth the Merchant, Rodney Wofford. Those guys obviously just trying to make it on one stop.
And we've seen this truck tour come down to pit strategy and fuel strategy like this before. Rodney Wofford is digging, but he'll come down pit side this time, which is interesting because if this is all the way he can go, he comes down pit road at lap 44. This would have put him 2 laps shy of making it to the end if he were to go the same distance on fuel for the second half. Again, he could short pit this a little bit by a lap or 2 and take a 46 lap run for his second stint as opposed to 2 sets of 45 or 1 of 45 and 46. Seth the Merchant, he puts in an extra 1.36 miles. Now he ducks down to the inside, so I think it's clear that the strategy is making it on one stop for these guys.
That'll be a good call, obviously, coming down pit road. This is a rather long pit road. It stretches all the way from turn number 4 all the way down to turn number 1. So it's a long time to be going 45 miles an hour down pit road while all these other guys are just flying on the racetrack. So another thing to be cautious of, because it's so long, you have that much more time. You got to really watch your speed. And Seth the Merchant, he's going to slide right into his box. Picture perfect, 4 tires of fuel, and he'll be back out on the track underway.
Right side tires up. We expect the lefts to go up as well, and no doubt, in order to get the fuel cell full, they just take the 4 fresh Goodyear Wranglers and they headed back off of the pit lane. And now we see a completely different running order. Kyle Manger took over the race lead. He's down pit road. So is Rod Flank. So is Josh Hanner. Shane McEachin coming in. The 28 smokes the cone. Coming down pit side, but looks like the Haviland Toyota going to be able to get down without penalty. Jason Altmans is in. Stephanie Lessentine is in. And that should be the rest of the drivers that are playing the strategy game. So we mentioned Christian Peterson as the driver that came down from inside of the top 5 when pit stops began over 10 laps ago. Well, now he's in the race lead. The number 71 to take over at the start-finish line the next time. He'll swipe to the inside on the 48 of Josh Ball. That is a battle with that 48 who now falls 2 laps to the negative. Down in turns 3 and 4. 71 takes over the top spot. It'll be he, Boundy, Leahy, and company. They're going to lead for the next 30 laps or so, but then they're going to have to come down pit road while those other guys are done for the night. So you're looking at a 20-second gap back to the guys now 28 seconds. We get an updated number. It's basically a lap that it takes to come down, get down from speed, to get serviced, and get back up to speed. Not that it's impossible for these guys to still win this race, Andy, but they would have to pit and then use the fresh tires to their advantage in time to catch back up. That's a tall order. Right now, I'm likely to call for the guys that elected to stay out. Again, we mentioned fall off, which I think is going to be one of the bigger things. I mean, second biggest probably next to if we get a caution flag or not in determining whose strategy is going to win. At the start of a run, you're looking at sub 29 second lap times, 28/8. When you first, I guess right when you come down to the pit lane, you're running over 31 seconds. That's a pretty big drop off of about 2 seconds and change. So it could be possible, but right now I don't think 2 tires or 4 fresh tires, depending on what they would take that final time down, I don't think that's going to make up for being an entire pit stop behind on the 8 ball.
No, it's definitely not going to be enough. I mean, you see Christian Peterson, Sean Bounty, they had the advantage of the fresh tires for about 8 to 10 laps over Seth the Merchant, but you look at the running order, Seth the Merchant, from staying out as long as he did, still in that 4th spot, only 5 seconds off of the race lead. That's pretty amazing. That shows you how quickly he was getting around this place, even with the old tires. So Seth the Merchant, Rodney Wofford, Casey Malone, those 3 guys, definitely the class of the field here so far tonight.
And now past the halfway point, as we mentioned, and pit service has rounded to a close for now. We have 11 drivers on the lead lap in Darlington, and we look back and try to find who's going to be taking over the race lead when all of this is said and done. And the name goes to Seth the Merchant, the number 32. Pitted at halfway. He's only 4.8 seconds behind Christian Peterson, and he's faster than him, and he's digging. So as that 32 tries to take over the race lead, if he can pass Christian Peterson, and Peterson still has to pit, and the 32 does, and it's completely over at that point.
Yeah, it is. And Christian Peterson's going to have to come back out on track and basically drive his butt off just to get in the top 10. So he's definitely got his work cut out for him. Sean Bounty, those guys. What they need is in the next 10 to 15 laps, they need a caution. That'll give them the track position up front. Obviously, if there's a caution, Seth the Merchant, Wofford, Malone, those guys will not waste an opportunity to come down pit road to get new tires. So honestly, what the 71, the 34, the 70, what those guys really, really need is a caution. That's about their only chance to win this thing.
And DeMerchant going to go to the inside, takes a spot away from Keegan Leahy, and now in third goes the number 32 Chevrolet, continuing to charge forward and make it up time at about 0.5 of a second per lap. So I think this is one of those light bulb moments where we talk about the distance and we talk about how really the thing that you're betting on if you're the person in the lead is the gap that you work with now. That gap is non-existent, and I think it's pretty clear, barring any yellows, that the one-stop strategy is going to be the one to win this. So if you consider that written up in ink and you kind of count these guys out who have pitted back at lap 33 or so, still have to pit somewhere around lap 70. If you want to count them out now, who has Seth the Merchant to race it against? Keegan Leahy passed the 7 Rodney Wofford in the Hype Energy Chevrolet, was down on the pit lane and running in 5th at the moment. He was down pit side also at the halfway point. So the 7 is the next driver running on track that is working the same strategy as the Merchant, and he is 6 seconds behind him. We talked about consistency. Seth the Merchant, he's on it right now, and he's almost at Sean Bounty, going to be battled for P2 very closely as they both work at a turn number 2 with about 4 car lengths separating them. And a bobble from that 34, going to make it a battle a lot sooner than we were expecting it. He'll drop to the inside, let him go on by. DeMerchant now in second.
Yeah, there's just something about this track, Kevin, when you see guys like that just any other track we go to, they're going to race you hard for that position every single time. But when you come to Darlington, it's a whole different story. You're not going to see guys battle like that unless they're side-by-side going for the last lap, for the win or for a pass for a position. That's the only time you're going to see these guys battle for a position. For the most part, guys coming, you know what, that's just respect for everybody that's out on the racetrack, the respect they have for everybody. That's what that is.
So DeMerchant now in second, and here he comes up on his teammate. Interestingly enough, problems for Matt Quick, a connection problem going to drop him from the sim. Only 11 drivers on the lead lap at the moment, and I think the interesting thing about this is we talk about the new fixed setup versus what we used to see in the open setups back in season 1, back in 2015. And normally, it was the teams who worked together who had the same setups that dominated. Not so much this season because, again, the fixed set fall back on the driver. But as Seth the Merchant closes in on his teammate Christian Peterson to make a pass for the race lead, I'm surprised that the variation in strategy came amongst teammates. If anything, I would have expected both these guys to be on the same game as they're working together and on the radio with each other, but apparently not the plan. Two of them taking very different approaches, and the 71, he's not going to roll over quite yet. He'll shut the door down the backstretch. DeMerchant to the inside, and new race leader at lap 59 to 32 is now out in front.
That's a pretty good move he did right there. It's not usually a place you'll see somebody take the pass, but he had the speed, he had the opening, and he knew he could get that truck to stick there on the bottom. So Seth the Merchant back to the lead, no surprise. Right now he'll start to pull away from Christian Peterson as the fresher tires will definitely work in his favor with a little bit of clean air in front of him.
So now that DeMerchant is out in front, we await the final cycle of pit stops for those drivers that still have to make it down. One more time, Keegan Leahy, the 72, a perfect example of that. That Chevrolet came down towards the beginning of the cycle. The pit stops is now coming down pit road for the final bit of service tonight, and there is quite a bit of right side damage on that truck, so I'm sure Leahy going to attempt to get some of that fixed. Maybe stay down, maybe a couple of extra seconds in the box, get that machine back up into running condition. We talk about Christian Peterson, we talk about the variance in strategy, and I said that practice is a lot different from the race. Well, Peterson came into qualifying, they didn't even put down a time in practice. It's safe to say that he's fairly comfortable with the track. I think he just was missed out on the strategy game tonight.
Yeah, he might have. But you know what? But at the same time, he was falling back too from the beginning. So he was falling back. I think at that point he felt he had nothing to lose. So he decided to take that call. And you know, if he would have looked like a hero if we had a caution about 5 laps ago. So for now, Christian Peterson will just have to do what he can, come down pit road, and hope to get the best finish he can.
With the drivers down pit side, we're going to take this opportunity to step away and go LSRTV non-stop inside of the final 30 laps in Darlington, South Carolina. It is Ole Seth the Merchant out in front of the field to Peterson, Wofford, Malone, and Henry inside of the top 5. You're watching LSRTV's coverage of the RODDCAR Truck Tour on LSRTV and iRacing Live. More to come still from the Darlington Raceway. The track too tough to tame. Back in a moment as the field tries to chase down Seth the Merchant.
Trucking has always been a part of me. It started years ago when my dad and granddad were hauling vegetables to market in Liverpool. The family immigrated to Canada in the late 60s and settled near Alliston, Ontario. I bought my first truck in 1982 and Mercer Trucking was born. Today, Mercer Trucking has over 50 trucks in terminals in Toronto and Los Angeles. Our storage facilities at both terminals can handle any size of distribution needs throughout North America. We service the continental U.S., including Hawaii and Alaska. We run over 120,000 miles per month and some of the best equipment on the road today. We specialize in less than truckload shipments, show freight, we do rush team service deliveries, and haul your refrigerated or heated product. Our regular team service from Canada to California is second to none, and our staff and drivers are among the best in the business. I'm proud of our people and what they can achieve. Trucking is in my blood, it's my livelihood, it's what I do best.
Back live at the Darlington Raceway, the track too tough to tame, and for many, well, that's starting to become true because it's been a wild 5 minutes. Happy to still have you with us on LSRTV. Evan Pasoko, Andy Kessler, and Cisco Scarmuza with you this evening from Darlington, South Carolina. And big problems for your at-times second-place runner in the number 17 of Machine Rat Bontempi. He was in and around it, but the big problems for the 7 with Christian Peterson. We had been talking about the fact that he was on the short end of the straw when it came to the strategy. He was still in a spot to battle for a top 5 finish, a top 10 finish, and he got into the fence and about got turned around by the 17. Bontempi was hot on his heels, got into the back of him. Good save by both of those guys. Peterson has since been down pit road. You saw that on our LSR TV non-stop, but now in 4, ducking to the bottom of the track. James Pileski, a hazard, slow it off the pace. He'll get down and out of the way just in time. Add that to the list of close calls.
Yeah, that was a real close call right there. That was pretty amazing. We're going to get the replay up to you right now, but, man, I'll tell you, there's been a lot of close calls out here, Evan, and I just tell you, man, these drivers have put on a fantastic show to be 73 laps deep into this thing and to not have a caution. I'm just absolutely amazed at that, and it's not because the drivers, it's because this track is so tough and so hard to drive that you typically see a few of them. But of course, once the cars get spread out, once the trucks get spread out, it makes it a lot, I wouldn't say easier to get around this place, but it makes it less likely of a caution to happen.
And Pileski went all the way around in turn number 2, and we talked about not using that second pit road. Well, he did to make sure he stayed out of the way, and he's coming down for service for what I would imagine would be for the final time tonight, if he does get serviced and get back out there, or if he does just park it for the evening. It has been a night that has gone downhill quickly for him. How about 15 laps to go in Darlington, though? We've been green since the drop of the American Ethanol green flag. It is Seth the Virgin. Started on pole, topped the practice charts, and right now looking to sweep the evening and get his RODDCAR iSuper Speedway Friday night doubleheader off with a bang. But he's still far from home with 15 laps to go on the board. Still plenty more that can happen in Darlington, but I think now, with him being out by 10 seconds, the most exciting battle we're going to look at is the battle for the number 2 spot. Rodney Wofford has it. Casey Malone wants it. That one out of turn number 4. And even with Kyle Manger not all that far behind, it's a 3-driver battle for second. And a lot of connection problems with the 72 and the 52, causing a lot of problems down in turn number 2. It looks like just behind him, that 72 machine as well. Keegan Leahy involved in an accident. The back end of that truck is jacked up on the fence. We talk about connection problems hitting a couple of these guys, Andy. I said we're far from over. It looks like the sim is going through a little bit of a lag spike. I don't know what's going to happen here.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. Cars blinking all over the place, and
maybe
it's definitely something you don't want to see. But wow, this is I don't think I've ever seen it this bad, honestly.
We see a couple of guys that have some bad connection problems, but it's the whole sim. Yeah, all these guys, they have a ping. You can tell how their connection is. Everybody is having some major problems. The 48 machine having to receive a throughput fall, and a lot of drivers have just dropped out of the sim. Pileski, Hendrick, and everybody else. So the race remains under green flag conditions, but basically the whole session is now beginning to disconnect, and you're seeing a lot of drivers start to fall off of the racetrack. And it is a problem inside of the sim itself. It's not a problem on our end of things, and I believe, depending on what they're going to call this, this could be the end of the race. Right now, we're still racing it out. We still have 12, 13 laps to go. But
I don't know
if
who's
the sim
racing,
if the sim is considered gone, they can end the race. We'll see. Seth the Merchant's still out there, so nothing has happened yet. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they called the checkered flag as of 5 laps ago. I have to take a look at the rule book.
Yeah, it's going to be something they're going to have to look at because basically everybody's gone. I believe...
Yeah, field is frozen.
Yeah, everything's gone. It looks like the field will be froze, so... it looks like we'll be talking to Mr. Seth the Merchant with getting a big win here.
Luckily for him that he didn't have the problems. So the field is going to be frozen. The running order you see now is not official. We'll wait for the official word, and I just took a look to the official RODDCAR Truck Tour rulebook, and it does say as follows, quote, If a race server crashes, a reasonable attempt will be made to restart the race. If 50% of the race has been completed, which at lap 81, we're well past that point, the race will be official and the field will be frozen at the most recent scored lap before the server crash. And again, the whole sim didn't go down. It went down for quite a few drivers, so we don't know which lap is going to be counted as the white flag lap and the checkered flag. I would imagine it would be around lap 74 or 75. The one thing that we can tell you is Seth the Merchant in front of the field through all of it all going to be your winner this evening in Darlington. And it's one of those weird nights here on the sim. But Seth the Merchant going to take home the checkered flag from Darlington. We're going to step away as the 32 machine catches up behind the pace car. And when we return, we'll find out the official results from race control and be back in a moment. So, with a server crash, first time I think I've seen one of those in a couple of years, it is Seth the Merchant that wins. Thankfully, he was the driver out in front, so it doesn't jip anybody out of a spot, but Seth the Merchant is your unofficial winner at the Darlington Raceway. We'll step away, we'll queue up race control on the radio, we'll try to get an updated look at what this race is going to look like as the checkered flag flies, but Seth the Merchant, your winner tonight in Darlington, South Carolina. So with that, we'll step away, take a commercial break, be back in a moment. You watching LSRTV's coverage of the RODDCAR Truck Tour on LSRTV at iRacing Live. We'll see you in a minute. Back live in Darlington, South Carolina. The pace car going around, but it's all out there by itself. Tonight's race has been called shy of the lap number 91 mark for a server crash. Connection problems. We'll say we got rained out here late in Darlington, and it was Seth the Merchant who was out in front at the time of the race being suspended. He took the checkered / yellow / red, whatever you want to call it, to take home the win in tonight's Southern 200. We'll catch up with him now. Pit side, Seth the Merchant. It's Evan Pasoko, Andy Kessler, top side. You got a copy?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's one of the more unique wins that you've gotten, but it's a checkered flag nonetheless. How much do you know about what just went down?
I think the iRacing servers started to go down or something, because all of a sudden the entire field started blinking, and I think like over half the field like lagged out. So we froze the field there, I think on lap 75, so it's over.
And good for you is you didn't drop out, and either also you were out in the race lead. But things were looking good for you regardless because of the fact you were out in front. Let's talk the strategy. You went to the halfway point. We saw a couple of guys come down around lap 30 to 35, and we were expecting once Christian came down, all right, when are you going to come down because you don't really want to give up much time. You guys stayed out, went for the one-stop strategy as opposed to the two-stop strategy, and you had passed all the guys that still had to make another pit stop when only completing year one. So you were well out in front of the field and pretty much set if that race were to go green. Talk us through that strategy call. Is that something that you were coming into this race knowing you were going to do? Because the comment that I made was normally when we see strategy like that, it's teams that make the strategy, and I found it interesting that you guys both took different courses of action despite being on the same team.
Actually, what happened with CP is I know he got in the wall and damaged his car, and he was off pace, so we decided to pit early, and then I was just watching my field the whole time, and I realized with like 10 laps to go in the first run that I could almost make it in one stop, and it would be really close. So I went as far as possible, and I was trying to save gas there. I think I was going to be good if we didn't have that lagging issue, because I was about 4 laps to go on the gas when he called the race official.
So with that, we look forward to the second part on our doubleheader. Not sure the status of that race. Again, we're currently following the situation as far as what the servers on the sim are doing. We are slated to go green just past 10 o'clock Eastern for the Drive for Mental Health Awareness from Talladega. And it would be the first race from Talladega on the new calendar for you guys. It would be a feature race format, trying to get things back in the swing of things. And on that notion, we talk a whole lot about how there really isn't an off-season in this series. It's week 4, round 3 for the trucks, and we go to round 4 for the ISS stuff later on tonight. Are you guys kind of caught back up to speed, or did you never really slow down? Because the hype of Daytona now behind us, it's time to get back to work.
I think I never really slowed down, because we go right from the end of the championship, and we get just 1 week, and then we're doing the shootout. So, it's kind of like the season never ended, even though we got the championship.
Well, I want to congratulate you, Seth, on the win. It was an interesting one. We're calling it a rainout in Darlington, but definitely the fastest truck out there on the track, and the most consistent as well was the big thing that we talked about. So hopefully we'll see you guys on track here in a little bit. If not, we'll see you next week. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
So I have seen many a thing, and our producer letting us know we're seeing a virtual John Cena take the pace car around Darlington. Pace car driver for the Daytona 500, by the way, if you haven't heard, next Sunday. Kind of an interesting spot, Andy. I've done plenty of races. I have not done a race where the server has crashed inside of the final 10 minutes, which I think speaks a lot to how good iRacing is. Again, the only time we talk about connection problems, or really the connection on the sim, is when there are problems with said connection. I've done plenty of these races, and a race has never had to be called due to a connection problem, so I think that speaks volumes to how good iRacing is at this, but at the moment, iRacing is down. So the truck race has been called, and we don't know if we are going to go racing for iSuper Speedway competition later on this evening, so we're just kind of sitting in limbo for a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely a first time for me to see something like that is that bad. I've seen where cars obviously drop out. We see that not necessarily every race, but it has the potential to just bearing basically on everyone's personal internet connection. But when you actually have the whole server crash like that, that's a first for me to see something like that, especially during a broadcast. So, it is what it is, and it is computers. So, I mean, listen, things happen, and we'll see what iRacing can do and see if they can get the thing back up and running so we can have a nice Talladega race here later on.
We want to be optimistic, but I think based on the time of day that we're looking at, I'm not all that sure that things are going to get back up and running.
I'll just drive down there and fix it.
You're closer than me, so we'll put you on the job. So we're going to keep everybody posted. Hopefully we do go reseed for tonight's Drive for Mental Health Awareness from Talladega. It is round 4 on season 6 of the iSuperspeedway.com Racing Series. And as always, exclusively right here on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing. Go to our Facebook, facebook.com/live sim racing TV. You'll be able to find out the latest information there. Also, I encourage you to follow iRacing on Facebook, and also their Twitter is at iRacing. That would probably be the quickest way to find out more information. But as of now, the skies have opened up in Darlington and Talladega, and we don't know if we'll be back for part 2 of our ISS RODDCAR doubleheader. Do want to thank all of you, though, for tuning in tonight, as you do every single Friday night. And hopefully, we'll see you later. If not, we look forward to seeing you later on this week. LiveSimRacing.com. Got a brand new website going to be coming out in the next day or two. That's going to be the place where you can find our complete broadcast lineup and much more. And again, our Facebook, as I mentioned, is facebook.com/LiveSimRacingTV. So until next time, whether that's tonight or next week, on behalf of everybody at LSRTV, I want to thank you for joining us for this presentation of the RODDCAR Truck Tour. And on behalf of the team tonight, for myself, Evan Pasoko, for Andy Kessler, and for LSRTV producers, Cisco Scarbuza, I want to thank you for tuning in. Congratulations, Seth the Merchant, your winner tonight in Darlington. We hope to see you later on tonight from Talladega. We'll see you soon.